think we can get started now. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I am currently quarantining from Northern California. I hope you all are happy and safe wherever you're quarantining from. We're really excited to host this all-female panel today, my favorite kind of panel, about how to find a career in this crazy time. I would really like to promote the work that the center is doing right now in regards to this topic, in that we have just placed 31 students in our summer internship program. So while that's not jobs, I would hope that people are feeling a little bit better about what we're able to do in a remote capacity right now. So I'm really excited for our students that are in internships over the summer, despite this crazy time. And I'm looking forward to talking today with our awesome, lovely lady panelists about how to get a career in politics, especially as we're reopening right now, particularly in California. So with that, I will start introducing the panelists, and you will not hear me talk as much. So I will start with Becca. Hi, Becca. Becca Doten is the Managing Director for Media Relations for the Los Angeles World Airports. Becca oversees internal and external communications for LAX, a fellow Trojan. Fight on. She leads strategic communications, planning, media press relations, digital and social media efforts, and marketing. She has over a decade of experience in communications and public policy in the city, county, and state level. She is also a delegate for the DNC. So welcome, Becca.
Thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here and fight on.
Next, I'll introduce Kendall Gaglio, who is another fellow Trojan, and I'll say fight on again. Kendall currently works as a legislative counsel for Turo, a car-sharing marketplace where travelers can rent any car they want, anywhere they want, anytime they want. Kendall has extensive background in government relations and public affairs, working for top companies such as Bird, Mercury Public Affairs, and my personal favorite, the Disney Company. Hi, Kendall.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And last but not least, while our third panelist, Danielle, is not a Trojan, she is a part of our Center for the Political Future family. She also went to a Jesuit school in her undergrad, and as did I, so I feel we have kindred spirits in that way as well. Danielle is a campaign strategist with more than 15 years of experience working with candidates and helping advance progressive causes. She joined the strategy group in 2009 after working on President Barack Obama's campaign, and has guided the strategy and direct mailings for prominent campaigns like Mayor Eric Garcetti's and Congressman Salud Carbajal, I totally messed that up, his 2016 victory. Welcome, Danielle.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. And how do you pronounce Salud's last name?
Oh, Carbajal.
Carbajal. That sounds much better than whatever I said.
That's okay.
So with that, thank you all for being here today. And for our audience members, please note that while I have prepared questions for our panelists, this is meant to be interactive. So please, if you have any questions, use the Q&A function that is at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to get to them. Make sure that you mention your name and also where you're quarantining from. With that, ladies, if it's all right with you, we'll dive right into it. Awesome. So I think I'm going to start with Kendall. So you are in this, you have a background in public affairs and government affairs, and you're currently in the tech world. I'm hearing different things right now in tech. How has COVID-19 affected your hiring decisions for not just full-time jobs, but part-time jobs and internships?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm quarantining from downtown LA, so just down the street from campus.
Awesome.
Thank you again for having me here today. It's a hard question to answer looking broadly at tech, because I know that people are watching the news and have seen that there have been layoffs, even at tried and true companies that seemed like they would always be something we needed, like an Uber or a Lyft, Lime, Bird. There have been layoffs and reductions just because this is so unprecedented. Not to be said that they won't come back and be hiring in stronger numbers than ever. Even at Turo, we had to have layoffs, unfortunately. So It's something that we've just sort of seen across the board. That being said, there are still internships. Some roles are still being hired for because I think that because of the pandemic, you're going to see a little bit of musical chairs. So people will get poached. There'll be different opportunities. People are rethinking where they live as well, because now that you can work from anywhere, so that might mean the opportunity to work for different companies that they've had their eye on. So it's not just grim news across the board, but definitely it has impacted hiring practices, and it's making things a little more competitive, and all the more important to be tuning into panels like this and to be out there networking.
I love that. I'll ask Danielle, same question. What are you guys seeing? I know we briefly talked about campaigns right before we got on the call, so I'm curious to know your thoughts.
Sure. So I think, the one thing that isn't going to change about COVID-19 is that there's still an election in November. For a lot of the other states where they were moving back their primaries, and there were, some unpredictability about one, when the election date was, and two, the method of voting, in light of the pandemic. And so I think that sort of has now been sort of figured out. I think it was a crazy sort of March and beginning of April of trying to figure out when the election dates are, and sort of the methods of how this would sort of play out. But I certainly think that it's sort of settled down now. We're starting to see, here in California, some clarity around what the rules are going to be for November, which I think helps for hiring. I think the one thing that doesn't change is that, the way that campaigns work is on a quarter by quarter basis, because that's sort of how the fundraising gets reported. And so if you think and look at when is the next quarter ending, well, the next quarter end is June 30th. That means that there's probably going to be holding back on hiring anyone new until after the 4th of July. And so the best thing that people can do right now is sort of figure out, what campaigns am I interested in working on, and trying to figure out what relationships do I have that can help lead me to where that can, to working on that campaign, or doing some volunteering, in the next month. A lot of times what ends up happening on campaigns, whether you're able to do this in person or not, is that the person sitting in headquarters doing work eventually gets a paycheck sometimes. And so I do think that, volunteering, if you have a skill set that you've developed during college, whether it's managing a club's Facebook page or Instagramming for, a club, or, on behalf of an organization or an elected official, those are skill sets that you can bring to a campaign. And I certainly think that, doesn't matter what level of the ballot, there's those needs to be on social media for candidates right now is so important. And I think there's opportunities there. But I would sort of, see, fundraising is going to be in any campaign really key until June 30th. Once you get to June 30th, more options may be opening around, whether or not campaigns can hire, and whether, what they can afford to do, with the budgets that they have, moving from July till November.
Yeah, it's funny. Earlier this year, before all of this happened, all my graduating seniors, like I said to them, why wouldn't you work on a campaign this year? Like, this is the year to be able to work on a campaign. And some of them are doing well with that, others are not. So, who would have known that we would have had an international pandemic? But alas, here we are. So Becca, I actually have two questions for you. One, in your capacity as a delegate for the DNC, I've told students in the past to go volunteer or work at the convention because they hire like rapid. Is that a good idea or a bad idea right now, or what are you seeing with the DNC?
Okay. First of all, this is kind of a maybe a personal opinion on this, but having people run towards a space that is supposedly going to have thousands of people together in it may not be the best choice for one's health. I don't know that we're going to have a convention this year in a general in the way that we have in the past, and so I'm an elected member of the DNC out of the state of California. There's 10 men and 10 women elected in the state of California who are representatives on the DNC, not just for the convention. There's a whole bunch of other delegates who get elected to the convention but serve a 4-year term. And in fact, just last week, I was reelected for another 4-year term. So I'm very honored to be on there. Was elected as a young Democrat and then have continued my service forward from that. But I don't know if the convention is the place to go right now, because I don't know if we're going to have one. I have a ballot that's due on Friday that would allow the DNC the option of having a virtual convention or a quasi-virtual convention or partially virtual convention. What with the safer at home orders being where they are today, and if we can project forward into the August month, I don't anticipate we're going to have the convention like we have in the past. So that may not be the place to go, but I think there's lots of other options there. Danielle was talking about a lot of great opportunities on closer to home. Don't require you to go to Milwaukee in the middle of the summer. Stay closer home and volunteer there, where you might be sure that you can continue your volunteer service.
Yeah, and Milwaukee in the summer, I mean, it's beautiful, but it's a little hot too. So for us Californians. So thank you for that perspective. So let's talk about your work at LAX. What are you seeing? Obviously, LAX is owned by the city of Los Angeles, so it is a government entity. Are we hiring? Are we not hiring? What's your kind of opinion on that?
All right. Well, so I have some bad news and some good news regarding government. So I've had the opportunity to work in government from 2005 until today. So about 15 years I worked for a city council member. I worked for the state controller, and now I work for proprietary department. That means that the department doesn't get city taxpayer funds, but we have oversight by the city of Los Angeles itself. So I've worked on all those positions. Additionally, I worked on campaigns with a sheriff's race in Los Angeles County a few races back. But so the bad news first. No, we are not hiring. There's been a hiring freeze for the rest of the year. In fact, I just got an email today from our second in charge at our HR team for the first time ever that he's ever seen the entire month of April. We didn't hire a single person. In the month of May, we hired 5 people. 3 were police officers who were continuing through their academy service so that they could then come on to the police department. So they'd already been well into the academy by the time the COVID pandemic hit. And then we have 2 people who were hired with our facilities team to backfill positions that were vacated because people were in vulnerable populations and couldn't come to the airport. So right now we are not hiring, and looking ahead to our fiscal year 21 budget, the one that starts on July 1st, we have also put a freeze on hiring. So we have to do a lot more with less. We're also offering a pretty aggressive incentive package for people to retire who are eligible for it, because we need to get people unfortunately off of payroll, because we were devastated by COVID, and we are being devastated by COVID. And I know Kendall can relate as it comes into her world as well. But we had numbers down 96% reduction in the number of passengers over the same day the year before. So 4% of the number of people who'd been at our airport that same day a year before in end of April and in May versus this year. So we're seeing a little uptick. We're in the 80s now. We hit 88%. So we're seeing a little uptick, but it's going to be a long slog back to a time when travel is like it was before, and we are not going to be hiring for quite some time. We're going to be trying to ensure that the people who are there are not hit too hard. We're all going to be getting furloughed coming July 1st as well, where we'll be getting about a 10% pay reduction in line with what the city's seen as well. So that's the bad news. I'm just telling you like it is. I'm getting a pay cut, you're getting a pay cut, everyone's getting a pay cut, no one's getting hired. The airport has extra reasons why we can't even have interns coming in, because there's a very robust, aggressive process for badging someone to be an employee at the airport. As you can imagine, we can't just have anyone coming to an international airport without background checks and fingerprinting and all those kind of things. And because our badging office is currently working partially remotely, we're not even doing an internship right now, though we do expect that at some point that will reopen. But again, even that we're not even allowed to get interns we've had before, because we don't have the process to badge them at this point. So that is the bad news. And in the city, you're seeing similar things. You're seeing furloughs for the city of Los Angeles in general for those non-proprietary departments. So a lot of kind of bad news there. But in the good news, the good side of it are the people who are actually working in government and in city government. And so while we do see furloughs on the horizon, like I said, with about 10% pay cut, we are not seeing any layoffs right now. And so I guess my kind of point on this would be that if you want a job that will weather downturns in the economy, and and get you through the bad times as well as the good times. City government is a great job for that, especially in the civil service pathway. So I highly recommend, and I know there's a knock on civil service, and I know it's almost kind of a bad word to be a civil servant, but you look at the best of the civil service and what you can do there, and testing into those positions and really excelling in those positions puts you in a place where it's much, much, much harder to get rid of you. There's a whole bunch of union reps who will get your back if there's something going wrong, and so downturns in the economy, one of the best places to be is in a city or federal government, state government. There certainly aren't, there's pros and cons about government, but I can highly recommend it as a career path, and for those downturns it does provide some additional job, you get a little bit of more job security with it.
Well, especially in a city and county like Los Angeles, where our population is huge and bigger than some states. So you actually, it's a really cool place to work in terms of the what you can get done on the local level. So I completely agree with you. And I had to cancel my honeymoon because you couldn't fly because of COVID. So I have like $1,500 in travel credits that I am ready to use. So hopefully I will be frequently going to LAX soon with my mask and goggles, I guess.
Just a face covering and stay 6 foot distance from other people, but we welcome you back and we're clean and safe.
Awesome. So we actually do have a question from our audience, Natalie Jensen, who is from LA, but quarantining in Connecticut. I think it's a really good question, so I want to definitely bring it up. A lot of times when you have new graduates who have done these internships, they try to apply for jobs and it says, 2 to 3 years of experience, and they can't seem to kind of break the barrier of getting into a job. So Danielle, what kind of advice would you give to our students who are just trying to get into government, but don't have that 2 to 3 years of experience for these entry-level positions?
Sure. I mean, on the campaign side, it's a lot of it is, what connections can you, campaigns will put out job descriptions, but ultimately the people who get the jobs are the ones who network their way into it. So I think networking is incredibly important, even if it is, looking up people on LinkedIn or your college networks, connecting with other alums who are, in the area, doing a Zoom, informational interview is also a really important thing, because what will end up happening is that all of a sudden, and like I said, before, I think we'll have probably 2 big spikes in hiring. It will come after the 4th of July, and then it will come after Labor Day. Once those 2 come in, people will say, I have jobs open, I need resumes, I need them now. And you want to be top of mind for folks who are in this industry, as they're looking, to be that. The other thing I would say is don't be afraid to, look at where the opportunities are. Like, don't be afraid to say, that you maybe never thought about living in Arizona, but now that's where the opportunities are, because it's a battleground state. There's a big Senate race. There's a number of congressional races. There's a huge focus on the state legislature. And so, and they're a state where I think that they're more likely to have less stay-at-home orders than they are in California. So that might be something to think about, is that, are there other states that are maybe, opening up that, it might not be the safest way to go door to door, but you might be put in an office where, you'll have some considerations there. But the state parties are going to have money to hire, and that's going to be, something that you might want to think about. So, but I do think it is, there's a lot. The other thing I will say is that because there were so many presidential campaigns for this primary, there are a lot of people who came off of those presidential campaigns and their candidates dropped out or suspended their campaigns, and then the pandemic happened. So they're, have great skills. They were sloshing it in the snows of Iowa for quite some time, and now they're just waiting for their next opportunity. And those folks have, some really great experience, and that's where your competition is at. So I do think finding ways to make yourself competitive in those ways, but also making sure that you're connecting with the right people who can get you to the place that you want to be, I think is going to be really important in this environment.
You just got me nostalgic about Iowa.
It feels like it was so long ago, but it was just in January.
It really, yeah. And I was there. That was what a time to be alive. So Kyndell, you're not only my friend and colleague, but you're, in my opinion, probably the biggest networking wizard, because you're always out there, always trying to, make yourself known and get to meet different people. Kind of just piggybacking off of this, and you've kind of had also, you've always worked in politics, but you've worked in different aspects of politics, government relations. What would you say in relation to this question about how to kind of make yourself known? I would assume it would be something along the lines of networking, but I don't want to make that assumption.
Yes, networking. But before we dive in there, I love what Danielle said about not, just because it says 2 to 3 years experience, that doesn't mean the person that gets the role will necessarily have 2 to 3 years experience. So I really implore everyone that's tuning in to broaden how they think about experience and never read something that they feel based on the job description that they would be a great match for or a candidate for, and eliminate themselves before even trying because of that one bullet point on the job application. Anything that you've done where you've taken a leadership role, certain classes can count as experience. A leadership position in a committee or a fraternity or sorority, internships that you've done. Even if you've done volunteer work, there's so many ways to kind of categorize experience that could be happening simultaneously as the time you've been in school. So don't eliminate yourself. Let them tell you no. Don't tell yourself no. Also, I think that, and again, we're all just giving you the best opinion and advice we can. This pandemic is truly unprecedented, but I have to think, and I'm hopeful that there will be ample opportunity for people that are greener in their careers, because everything is so virtual now and you've grown up with that. So you're going to have companies that maybe wouldn't have necessarily hired younger or less experienced, but now they have to get everyone on Zoom. They need people that's comfortable planning a virtual event and doing things that they maybe haven't had staff do before, depending on the industry, depending on the brand. So you should be applying to roles with confidence, knowing that you're going to maybe be more tech savvy than some of the people that are at the company that are senior to you, and you're going to bring that skill set and that comfort and that confidence. To Meghan's point about networking, yes, it's so important. And there are even just small ways to do it. I feel like you don't get this far, you don't get to be affiliated with the USC community without knowing a thing or two about it, but just little details. You see my lovely USC background today, which was fun, and I'm spirited and happy to be a Trojan and was so excited to sport it. But if you are doing informational interviews or meeting with people and you have the capability to change up your background. If it's for a job in transit, find a fun, professional transit background, just something that will make you more memorable. It's the details that make the difference. And be on video as much as you can. Calls are great, but to the extent that you can really put a face with the name and really connect with people, use social media. Just make sure whatever social media handle you're using for your networking, that you monitor what you put on it and that you're smart about it. But really at this time where everyone is basically glued to their phones and laptops, because we all have to be because we're at home, really leverage that for your networking.
Yes, definitely. So, Danielle mentioned don't be afraid to look outside of kind of what you were thinking, and I think that's a key point here, especially during this time that we don't know what all jobs are going to be available, and there may be some reduction in the number of jobs available in a lot of industries. A lot of people have been laid off, we know, and those folks in some cases will be the first ones to be rehired when the opportunities are back. So what are those jobs? What are those places you want to work? And kind of, or what in what kind of industry do you want to work in, and then be open within those places you'd like to work about what you might be able to do. And Kyndell said, think about the different kind of experiences you have and how you pitch yourself. And I've talked to a lot of people who are just a few years, if that, into their careers, about how do they go into interviews and use what they've done in school as a background. Well, I did this and this and this, and this is how it relates to what you're doing. And I know we all know, but research where you're going in to talk to people, even if it's just an informational discussion with someone. Know what they do, know where they work, and ask questions related to that, because you're going to be able to share some information about yourself that's relevant to them once you know what they're going to do. And as you wait and as you look, again, I will certainly stress the civil service process. There are tests that are open, and there are tests that will be open. Go to the different websites for the city, for the county, and for the state. Sign up for the tests, for the entry-level tests. They may seem like the jobs are below you in some cases, and in some cases that might be the case that you have experience that goes beyond what that job classification is, but you want your foot in the door. And whether it's a civil service position or if it's getting a job with a city council office, answering the phones, that is a foot in the door. And from that point on, it's if you can excel and show people that you're committed to the job no matter what it is, you will go far fast. We've all been there. I see, Kyndell, you're shaking your head or nodding your head. Yes, we've all been in, long enough in these jobs to know that there are people who are great and there are people who kind of aren't. And so the people who are great, you find pretty quickly, and you help elevate them as soon as possible and move them forward and help them move along in their career, because you don't want to lose them. So don't be afraid to get in a job that you think you might be a little bit overqualified for, because it's going to get you in the door. And if you are in fact overqualified for it, people will see that and they'll give you more responsibility. Don't be afraid to say yes when that responsibility comes along your way, even if it's outside of your job classification, because you know that they're looking for you to continue to move forward.
Well, thank you for jumping in with my technical difficulties. We have 3 people trying to do Zoom meetings at my house right now, so I apologize for that. But I think that you're 100% correct. And just to kind of keep moving on and being able to answer the audience questions, I really like this one that Riley Dolan sent in, and I'll give it to Danielle. A lot of times our students don't actually have political experience when they're applying to jobs. So Riley asks, what should you even put in your resume if you don't when you're applying to political jobs?
Sure. So I think, one, any volunteering that you have been doing. I think if you want to work on a political campaign, it's best to have some volunteer experience. One, to see if you like it, because what political campaigns end up being is sometimes you're an organizer, and the organizer means you're on the phone from 9 a.m. till 8 p.m. calling voters, and sometimes organizer means that you're facilitating, making sure the phone calls get made, making sure the door knocking gets made. So I would put any relevant experience. If you've given $5 to Bernie Sanders, or if you did text messaging or phone calling, anything that you've done that's campaign specific is really helpful. For political consulting firms, we do a lot of editing, we do a lot of operations, kind of keeping schedules, trains running on time. And so sometimes the relevant experience for a firm like ours, where we're doing a lot of copywriting and is we do direct mail. And so production, if you've worked on your college paper, if you've done any production, whether it's like a literary journal, what are those type of experiences that you've had? Sometimes those candidates are far more attractive to us because of the nature of our work than somebody who has been a part of the Young Democrats and volunteered on a bunch of campaigns. So I think it depends on what you're applying for, but really kind of think about holistically, what are the type of experiences that you have that can help you and put those into your resume. The other piece is, update your LinkedIn or get a LinkedIn, and then make sure that you're putting your where geographically you are and where geographically you wouldn't mind going in your description, as well as, and I think Kendall mentioned this, making sure that your social media would present of how you would want to be forward facing with other candidates and clients, because I have, certainly seen a number of stories of tweets coming back to haunt people who are now press secretaries, because all of the reporters on Twitter, and as soon as they see you may be hired to be a press assistant at the very, very, low end of the spectrum when it comes to hierarchy, but you have a tweet that, was derogatory towards a certain community, and all of a sudden it becomes a national story. And so I do think, making sure that, maybe it's putting the college account to rest and starting a new persona online. Maybe it's sort of going through and deleting things, or untagging yourself from things. That's certainly that's certainly something that you will want to take inventory of, but that could also, be an asset of, if you know how to curate an online persona, that's something you might want to put in your resume and cover letter, because that could be a marketable skill for a political candidate these days.
I think that's a very, 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 very good point. Anything you do on the internet will either help or haunt you for the years to come nowadays. Kendall, Becca, is there anything you wanted to add with that as well?
I have something to add. I think it would behoove applicants. I know I would have two different resumes as I was applying, because some political jobs are going to be much more partisan in nature, and your party affiliation might be important because they want to know that you're loyal and in the trenches. For others, like if you're in-house in the corporate world like I am, if anything, you want to go the other direction and assure them that you can work with both sides of the aisle, because my political affiliation is whoever I'm working for at the time. So whoever's going to help them, I want to support. So I definitely, when I was in grad school, would have two resumes, and one I would highlight if I were in a political org. Like if you're in Young Republicans or Young Democrats or College Republicans, College Democrats, you want to put that on applications where you're applying to work for a Republican or Democrat candidate or jobs that are more partisan. But maybe that's something that you might leave off. I did the same. I worked for an elected official. So on one resume, it would just say that I was a policy advisor for the County of Orange. On my resume that was more political aimed, I actually put the official's name, because it was very easy with any Google search to denote what party that official, was part of. So, and then kind of tying me to that. So it's not a bad idea, and it takes a little longer, to tweak for each job. But once you get it down set and you kind of have a more political template and to kind of make those tweaks so you can, apply far and wide. A misconception I had was that I had to decide right off the bat. I knew I wanted to work in the political arena, but exactly where? Do I want to be in-house? Do I want to work for local government? You don't necessarily have to decide that. You can kind of put out applications, network, meet people, go on interviews, see who you click with, and one can often lead to the other. I did work in local government, and it was a great training ground to then be in government relations, because you know some things that work and don't work, and you meet a ton of lobbyists, and you know what tactics you respect and the ones that you want to give information to and let, get in front of your boss for meetings, and those that you don't really trust. And it made me so much better at the job than when I was on the other side of the desk. So you don't necessarily need to have it all figured out. There's a lot of time and luck that comes into play. So be open-minded and have those, kind of dual resumes that you use depending what the role is.
And just a couple things to add about resumes. First of all, read the job description. I think Kyndell spoke about this kind of when she gave a couple different examples, but the number of cover letters and resumes I've received that are just wrote, obviously hadn't read the job description and don't respond to it, those go in the pile of I'm not interested. If you don't tell me some reason why you're interested in this job, then there's a lot of people who are interested in that job. So what is it about the airport that's interesting to you, or whatever it is that you're looking to get into? And then secondly, if there's a way to link to content that is an example of what you're talking about, it's nice for you to say, hey, I'm really great at graphics. But if you can say my portfolio can be reached at and linked to it, then that's great. Little videos, graphics. I'm in PR, right? So what I'm looking for is writing samples, show me you've done a press release, those kind of things, something I can look at that will show you off. And then finally, there is a young woman out of USC, your program, in fact, that we had, and we ended up hiring at our office, whose resume was to be an intern with us in the PR department. That was this amazingly laid out graphic design that included like all these different little infographics and stuff for her, and she was applying to help work on graphics for us, among other things. So yeah, we hired her. I mean, it was perfectly tailored to what we were looking for. So if there's a way to stand out that isn't cheesy or just kind of like a little bit cringy, think about it. It's taking a risk. It's certainly taking a risk to make your resume different than everyone else's, but in our case, because of the job, it was a good risk.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Any way you can stand out. I mean, when we have openings, I can get up to 20 resumes, and they're all black and white, PDFs, and being able to determine between which one is which, and with you want to make sure you catch someone's attention in the first 10 seconds as they're opening up the email. So I definitely agree with Becca. Be creative, think of different formats, use tools like Canva to lay out something that's a little unique and different, as well. And also, just one tip, like get the name of where you're applying, right? Like I have gotten inquiries asking me about Global Strategy Group and I'm the strategy group, or, we'll get things that are, thinking all strategy groups are the same. And you want to be very specific about, where you're applying and what the firm does. Do some research. And, we all like to be flattered. And so, when you go to our website and you see, all sorts of Barack Obama things, talk about Barack Obama, because, that's something that was very core to our firm and a big piece of what we're a part of. But you're only going to know that if you do the legwork and, and really try to push to impress upon the people that you're trying to get to hire you.
Yeah, I would really hope that people would get the name of where they're applying correctly. So students, please write that down. Kendall, you brought something up that I thought was really interesting. So I'm going a little bit off script here. When you're 18, 19, 20, 21, even 25, your political identity might shift. One day you might be a Republican, then you might be a Democrat, then you might be an independent or a non-party preference voter, because of things that happen to you. You're literally growing up. I have students who have said to me, I worked on this Republican campaign because that was what I wanted to do at the time, but now I want to work for this Democrat. Should I take it off my resume? Or should I just be who I am and tell people, yeah, I did work for this person and I liked them at the time? What's your opinion on that? It's kind of, it's definitely an interesting subject right now.
Sure. If you're applying for a role where you do have to work with both sides, then I think it's great if you've done both, because then you can point to it and you have evidentiary support. If it is for more of a political role, then I think that's where the cover letter comes into play. And if there's a candidate that's so compelling to you and you feel so passionately about, you're willing to change up what your thoughts have been politically and the type of volunteer work you've done. If I were a candidate, I would think that was awesome. And those are the type of people you want to hear from on your campaign, because what a cool story. If you're precinct walking for them and you're talking to voters and you're saying, in every prior election, I voted for the other side of the aisle, but I feel so strongly about this candidate, I'm actually volunteering my time, or I'm actually working on the campaign. I think that's a story that really resonates with people. It's opinion, but mine is that the best public policy is made in the middle, where each side is giving a little bit. So I definitely can see there being a reason why sometimes you might be for a candidate on one side of the aisle and sometimes the other, or why certain platform issues might resonate you. I think it's really rare that there's like a cookie cutter where someone's 100% a perfect, Democrat or Republican or Green Party or Libertarian or whatever. I think it's good when you kind of do it buffet style a little bit. So I think it's okay if your resume speaks to that. Just be prepared to talk about it a little bit if it's more of a political role, because they'll want to make sure you're not, doing op research and you're going to bail in a month. So just have a really earnest way of addressing it.
Becca, do you have any opinion on the subject as well? Great. Kendall answered it so well. But Kendall, that's actually a good point. And I'll shoot this to Becca. Do you look at everyone's cover letters, references? Is the resume just important? Kind of what is your process?
Yeah, I will glance at the cover letter. I'll see if there's anything interesting in there. Again, since I work at the airport, I'll use that as an example. I'll see why it is they want the job. I write very specific job descriptions for what I'm looking for. So I'm hoping in the cover letter, they can explain why they fit with that job description. If they add a little bit about why they love airports because they remember going to see their grandma when they're second grade and they bake cookies together or something, like that's actually kind of nice too. Like tell me a reason you want to work at the airport or rather than somewhere else. It's not easy to work at an airport. I mean, everyone's, well, not right now, but before right now, we all know traffic around the airport's not that great. So, it takes something to get there and back. So why do you want to go there, right? So I do read those resumes for sure. I will read, though you can keep off all this, once you start building, you can keep off what place you worked at while you're in high school and stuff like that. I'd much rather see your volunteer, what you've done volunteering, if it's relevant, and other skill sets that you have that are relevant. I don't look at references because they don't matter to me until after we've made a decision on who we'd like to hire, at which time then we ask for references, and we have a set of questions and everything, but references don't matter to me. I will ask people to come into their first interview for my job, the jobs that I have been hiring for, with a portfolio of some sort, and we'll make it clear what we need from them, whether it's clips or links or what it might be. And then we also put together a short test, I guess you could call it. We're allowed to do that in the city, where they come in 45 minutes earlier, they're given a description of the event we're going to have, and they have to write a press release, and then they give it to us, and we can look at it before we have our conversation together, so we can see how they are at writing under pressure and what they can bring to the table when it comes to that. So you need to engage me with the cover letter, making sure that I know you've read it, the job description, and you fit with it. Your resume should be clean and clear and speak to what it is that we're asking for. I think I had 4 or 5 different resumes, frankly, when I was last in the job search, because there was political and non-political and government and public relations and community relations all focused. And I have all of those, and I would just kind of change how I ordered things. So it's worth it to do that, and it's worth to take the extra time to put in that cover letter. But at the end of the day, if you don't, you can write a nice cover letter. If you don't fit what I'm looking for, I probably won't call you in, but it'll help.
What about you, Danielle? What are you looking for in terms of the application? Do you care about the cover letter? Do you care more about the resume?
Sure. I think the cover letter for us gives us a writing sample. I look for typos. That's the first thing I comb through and check for grammar and typos, because we do copy editing. What we're ultimately looking for in a lot of our entry level positions is a copy editor. And so if there's a blatant typo, or there's, a word choice that I would have done differently, that makes a huge difference. It's not a game changer, but it could set you apart. And it could be the difference between whether you get an interview or not. References for us, we'll usually ask for them after we interview, but we certainly are curious of, the type of people that get, given to us as far as references go. But for us, it's really kind of, we're looking for skill sets, and we're looking for people who, have handled pressure, can work on tight deadlines, who can, handle, everything and anything that comes our way, can, add to some of the things that our clients need, for their campaigns, and who are adaptable to change. And who can work, be self-starters and be independent. And so for us, it's less important to have a line in your cover letter that says, I'm a self-starter and independent, and this is, why I'm perfect, but to have words in your resume that demonstrate, this is the type of character that I'm bringing to the table, and this is the type of, person and work ethic that I have. And we can see that through the effort and the time and the energy someone puts into their resume. And that is for us what sets people apart when we are in a position to hire.
I love that. So we all kind of talked about how times are hard right now. I mean, it's just, there's no denying it in terms of finding a job. But we do have all these recent grads who are looking to do something. So Kendall, what do you think, if a student can't find a job, what should they be doing with their time at the moment?
I mean, we've talked about networking, and we can go more into detail of what that entails, and also just applying. Every day there's new jobs that post, and leverage your network. If you're tuning in, you're probably affiliated with the USC community, but if you're not, welcome. See, you were nice. But you could be doing informational interviews. People might have a little bit more free time because they're not stuck commuting. They're not, hopping on planes and trains and in automobiles as much. So leverage that. And I am a big, firm believer in LinkedIn stalking. So, put in your industry that you want to work in, put in even your dream company, and look for USC grads that are working there, or people who have worked there, and ask if you can pick their brain. And I think that being a part of a community like this is such a gift. And I always urge people to pay it forward, because 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there will be a student or a recent grad that is cold calling you and asking for an informational interview. And remember those that helped you along the way, and always say yes when you can. Just always say yes, actually, just make it work. But now is the perfect time to be doing informational interviewing. And it was mentioned earlier that when things do pick back up and people are hiring, they're going to go with who's top of mind. And they're going to say, I remember that student that reached out, we had a great conversation, and they're going to, shoot you the job posting or recommend you for it. So as much as you can, kind of be keeping on a schedule and setting up these sort of meet and greets. Come prepared, do your research, have a list of questions, make sure they know that you find their time to be valuable. But now's the time to be reaching out and kind of getting that conversation going and letting people know what your interest and skill set is.
Awesome. Danielle, what do you think? What should, aside from all the wonderful things that Kendall just said, what else could students be doing right now? Students or recent grads?
Sure. There's a number of organizations that are doing trainings for campaign staff and activists. National Democratic Training Group, there's the Arena, there's a number of them that are doing these, 1-hour webinars, so I would encourage you, in addition to what Kendall said, the networking, the LinkedIn stalking, all of that's important, but also, pick up some skills and, learn how to use databases. You learn how to use how to utilize the voter file, learn how to do social media for campaigns. Those are skills where you can, once you do the hour, or, you sign up to do some of these webinars that are more class oriented, then those are things that you could put on your resume that you've taken the time to do that. So while you're at home and, take advantage of these opportunities that are out there. And additionally, I would try to volunteer on a campaign if you are interested in working on campaigns. So many times it's the person who is, just saying, hey, I'll make as many phone calls as you want, I'll send out as many text messages as you want, and all of a sudden they've got a pot of money and they say, okay, we can hire you now, and that's how you get your foot into the door. So sweat equity is a huge thing in campaigns, and I would encourage you to find a candidate that you like, even if they're across the country, and and put in some work and get some of that experience, because the payoff may not happen while we're in sort of this 2020 pandemic, but think about next cycle, think about 2024, when there's a lot more opportunity in California, because the legislature is going to be terming out in big numbers, and new candidates are going to be coming in. And, all of those things are if you're looking at what do I want to be 5 years from now, like, start thinking about what are the skills that you need 5 years from now, and start getting those skills today, while maybe things are a little shaky and uncertain.
I think that's great advice. Becca, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I think look at where, outside of campaigns, and obviously campaigns are an excellent place to start. And I know so many people who've been hired from a campaign. When someone gets elected to office, is who do you hire first? You hire the people who are even the volunteers on the campaign who might have not been paid, but just really shown. Those are the folks who get hired first. And I've been in offices that have hired a lot of those folks in the past. So really it is a big investment in your future if you go in and take it seriously and excel as a volunteer. If you can do it as a volunteer, then we know once you're getting paid for it that we can count on you as well if you do it without getting paid. So I highly recommend that. But if you want to go outside of the campaign route, look at what's happening right now in our city and where there's opportunities. Most council districts are giving away food almost every single day, or masks, food to seniors, food to low-income folks. They need people to help them distribute that food. Look at the nonprofits that are distributing food to those who are in need right now, or other essentials, again, for this pandemic, whether it be the face masks or hygiene products. And then finally, look at the work that's being done with our homeless shelters and our COVID-19 testing sites. Those are ramping up and will continue to ramp up. They're going to need contact tracers. So again, these are jobs that you would have never even had on your list 2 months ago as a job. What was a contact tracer? No one would know what that is. Well, they're going to be hiring thousands of them across the country. So if the city will be hiring as well for that job description, other job descriptions during this time that you never would have thought of, but it's a foot in the door and it's an opportunity to meet people. Right now, people are being deployed from across the city and other offices as disaster service workers. Those people are being asked to go do different jobs than what they currently are, and we take an oath once we take a job with the city that we will be willing to be deployed to a disaster area if necessary. And that's what these people are doing, again, at homeless shelters, or with the senior meals, and with the COVID testing, are the three main places I've seen. So you can volunteer there, and there'll be a lot of people to meet.
That's great. I think
and I had one thing to add too. I know I said we're not hiring right now. We don't even take interns, but I will tell you, as soon as they will let us take an intern, if there's anyone at USC that would like to intern for the PR department at the third busiest airport in the world and one of the most exciting places to work in the entire city, LAX will be hiring interns as soon as we can.
And, you know, internships are a great foot in the door as well. So like you said, you ended up hiring one of our interns that we sent you. So I'm going to ask
I think we've hired 2 of your people so far. They happen to be twins, though.
Awesome. Well, see, there's the Trojan family. We're all helping each other. So I have one last question for each of you. That's a true or false. If you want to expand on it, be my guest, but just in the interest of time. So Kendall, true or false? Applying blindly to a job posting is a waste of time.
I'm going to say false. I don't think anything is a waste of time. You don't have to take the job. Why not go for it? Especially in this climate. I say go for it.
Danielle?
False. We've certainly hired people who we've never heard from before and didn't have connections to, and they turned out to be wonderful. So definitely, if you see it, you're interested in it, go for it. I will also say be persistent, follow up. A lot of times in politics, we hiring go, like, you have to understand, we don't have a lot of HR. There's not a lot of processes. So things can it took me a month to get my job at the strategy group. And it just turned out that that's just how my boss manages his inbox. So forgive us for being very, forgive us for not being as on top of the ball, but do be persistent, because that will certainly set you apart as well.
Becca?
100% false. I've gotten multiple jobs by sending out just putting in an application and then following up and trying to look through my network to see who I might know there and who might be able to put in a good word. And on that, a person, maybe 2 at most, who can put in a good word for you for someone who's hiring is nice. 17 calls from 17 different people on the same person is too much, and I probably will not hire you. So I don't have time for that. So be judicious about how you use your connections and who you use as your connection, and make sure that they actually are a good connection. I've also had people that have mentioned people that are not people that I think highly of as one of their references in an interview. And so just careful about who knows who and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of politics in whatever we do, and that's what you went to school for. So just know, no matter what you do, there's politics involved. So be careful about what you say and who you use as your references.
I'll add that if you do go for it, then the next time a job becomes available there, it's not a cold call anymore. So if you're going about it the right way, then even if you're unsuccessful in getting that particular job, you've established a connection there. You'll find organic ways to keep in touch, and then maybe you'll be considered and at the top of the candidate pile the next time a job opens. So it's just a great way to broaden your network in general.
Well, with that, I really, really, really appreciate you all for joining us. I am going to pass it over to Vivi Nordstrom, who is our representative from Career Pathways in Dornsife. So Vivi, if you can talk about your services, I welcome it.
All right. Thank you all for sharing today. It was very informative. I'm going to share my screen so you could all see it. In the next few minutes, I just want to briefly talk about the service and programs that we provide here at Dornsife Career Pathways. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. So I'm hearing a lot of networking, resume writing, cover letter, right? So I just want to let you know that you are not alone in this job search process. And Meghan and I, we really care about you. Our office wants you to be successful. We want to let you know that we are here to support you even during this pandemic. Here's the signature program that I would recommend. So you all talk about resume writing, networking. So we have designed a series of career workshops to address the most common questions and concerns students have. Come learn about planning for your career. How do you do your pitch? How to meet people successfully? How do you do salary negotiation? If you have never been to any of our workshops, this is a wonderful place for you to start with. And in every workshop, we will also remind you what are some events coming up and who are the speakers we're inviting. Not only career advisors will be presenting in these workshops, we also connect with recruiters, and we invite recruiters and industry professionals to come and to share their insights as well. On our website, you will be able to find the work guides, and it's a 1 or 2 page guides that summarize all the most important things that you should know about each workshops. All right, and we have the career networking expos. You all talked about how important it is to meet with people and to utilize the Trojan network. So we plan 3 big expo every year. This past semester, we had 2, and we had to postpone the social science clusters expo. Hopefully it will happen in fall semester. This is an opportunity for you to connect with alumni, industry professional, to learn about career path and just learn about their companies and opportunities. We also invite employers to come on campus to participate in our employer opportunity, where they host an info session or do a career talk. You can learn more about those events on our website as well. For the expo, if you are undergraduate Dornside student, you will be receiving an invitation in your email when it's the time. Gateway Internship Program. This is one of my favorite programs that we offer here at Dornside to undergraduate students. Not only we provide you to work full-time with a good pay in the summer, we also pair you with an established mentor, somebody who share common interest with you, and we're also going to invite you to our professional career seminar. In fact, we're going to start our Gateway seminar for this year in 30 minutes. So if you're interested, you can join us next year. And this is going to be a competitive process. We'll get a lot of application and interest. So in order for you to participate, you need to make sure your GPA is above 3.3, and you need to know how to write a strong resume, how to write a strong cover letter, as well as interviewing well. So come to our workshops, and then we will teach you how to do all of that. Career Pathway also sends out newsletters, and this goes out twice a month. This is a great place for you to learn other opportunities, research fundings, and all the good stuff. I would say you should, keep checking those opportunities, and the opportunities that we highlight here are different from, the Central Career Center's newsletters. So if we get a partner, or let's say Meghan's office is posting a opportunity and we want to share with you, or someone else says they want to hire an intern, right? We just throw it in there, and you don't want to miss that. This is my team. We have 3 full-time advisors and 1 graduate assistant. Even though we assign an advisor to each cluster, you're welcome to meet with anyone you want. During this pandemic, we're still offering services. So if you want to meet to talk about who you are, what kind of degree should you get, or what kind of careers can you get into with your degree, we're here available to you. We're also creating more social media content. So if you follow our Instagram page, you will see more career tips and opportunities there. And I hope you will join us there and just keep learning about different resources available to you. I know that there are a lot of resources at USC, and they can be really overwhelming. But if you just keep following a field and dig deep, that will get you very far. So these are all the things that I would like for you to consider today. And I hope that you will reach out to us to get the support you need. Now I'm going to turn it back to Meghan.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Vivi. I really appreciate it. And like Vivi said, we at USC and our panelists today, we're all here. We want to help our students, our alumni in whatever way we can. Please reach out. CPF is always here, Center for Political Future, to be able to assist. And the interesting part actually with COVID is that we are doing a lot more virtual events even in the summer now. We used to kind of cut it off at the end of the school year. So take a look at our website. We have a cool event actually this Thursday as well that you need to register for, which would be really great. And again, we're here to help. So with that said, thank you to our panelists, to Becca, to Kendall, and to Danielle, and thank you to Vivi. And if any of the students have any questions down the line, my email address is ginley@usc.edu, GINLEY @usc.edu, and I'm happy to help. So with that, fight on.